It's really quite a process to be able to rehearse with the composer, saying what I really have in mind, the imagining, a composer tries to put this onto paper, what they hear, and then to have him hear it and working with us was just, wasn't it? Really marvelous. So,
she's being very gracious. There's nothing harder than being a conductor and having the composer sitting right behind you.
But he's kind.
That's very nerve-wracking. But I just love singers, and I love when people are willing to do my music, and they're performing it very well. Sometimes my music doesn't get performed that well, and you know what? I still love it. I love the fact that people take the time and give care to the music and sing it. And the thing I've enjoyed about Sally over the last year, I've been hearing her children's choirs. I've heard this group a couple of times now, and they have such a vibrant spirit and such buoyancy in their singing, and I just really love it. I'm going to enjoy this tonight. I wanted to make a few comments because this is an entire song cycle. It was commissioned by Fresno and Chico State Universities. They had two chamber choirs in different areas that came together and sang this. And the first movement is so difficult that it has not gotten, the whole cycle has not gotten performed very often. But the movements you'll hear tonight in Flanders Fields and On You Stay have been performed quite a bit. But I really wanted you to kind of understand the context of that first movement. And so I wanted to just share a few things with you tonight. Also, my wife is sitting, she's the blonde, kind of almost in the center there. And this really kind of relates to, she was choral director at Granite Hills High School for 19 years, and they experienced school shootings there in El Cajon and in Santana High School in Santee a few years ago. The On You Stay that they're going to close with was written as a response to that school shooting. And yet, I didn't get on it right away, and while I was waiting, this was in March of 2001, while I was waiting to come up with the ideas for the piece, guess what happened? 9/11 happened in September. And it was a combination of those two events that caused me to write this On You Stay. And then Meryl and I went to a choral conference in Hawaii where we sat down with the directors of Chico and Fresno State, and they asked me to write an entire cycle in commemoration of 9/11. And so, For Whom the Bell Tolls, which these two movements are taken from, are part of that entire cycle. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about the On You Stay. I'll just read you the program notes if that's okay. Sometimes amidst the tragedies of personal anguish and universal horror, unspeakable evil seems to overwhelm life. For centuries, composers have utilized venerable Latin texts to capture the inexpressible, to plead for divine intervention. Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world, have mercy on us, grant us peace. As the new millennium unfolded in 2001, the epidemic of children shooting children in America's schools struck the school district in which I was raised. Violence erupted first at Santana High School and then followed at Granite Hills High School only 17 days later. Lives were lost, families were shattered, and peace was overcome by fear. I decided then that my next creative effort would be to compose On You Stay. Months passed when on September 11 the world stood transfixed, stunned by the attack on America's East Coast. I began composing the On You Stay to seek solace and to raise voices in supplication to the Lamb of God. When this closing movement is performed in the whole cycle, this closing movement provides a tender, peaceful resolution to the anguish and sorrow of movements 1 and 2. Now, what you don't hear tonight, I'll just describe it very briefly, is the Anthem for Doomed Youth, which is the first movement. It's a very dissonant, very tense piece of music. And it's actually written for two choirs that are separated and kind of in battle with each other. And towards the end of that first movement, the choirs physically and musically begin to merge together in unification. These are the program notes from that first movement. The poem, Anthem for Doomed Youth, was written in 1917 by Wilfred Owen, a British officer killed in battle 1 week before the war's end in 1918. He was only 25 years old at the time of his death. Owen's poetry rose to international prominence through its use in Benjamin Britten's War Requiem. On November 11, 1918, 1 week after this soldier's death, at the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, bells were ringing in Shrewsbury to celebrate the armistice, when the doorbell rang at his parents' home, and it was a courier delivering a telegram telling them that their son was dead. So you can't hear it, just take my word for it. The first movement is very tense, very heartrending, uses a lot of contemporary techniques, that kind of thing. Then in Flanders Fields follows directly on the tail of that. There's kind of little echoes of reminiscence from that tension that you hear in the first movement. In Flanders Fields, the poem was written in 1915 by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, a Canadian officer who died same year that Owens died, in 1918. He died of pneumonia while serving in the medical corps. This poem is considered one of the most memorable war poems ever written. McCrae died in the battlefields of France only months before the war ended. I wanted to just make a couple of comments about sounds you're going to hear, and I want your ear to be drawn to them because they're a little hard to hear in the context of everybody singing. But the mood of the music captures the sadness of the poem. And I think a lot of you might know that in Flanders Fields, where poppies grow, between the crosses, row on row, very famous poem. Well, there are instrumental devices in the oboe and in the percussion that are used to enhance the images that are suggested in that simple poem. The oboe employs a haunting flutter tonguing in its low register as well as higher register, and also pitch bending. And Andrea is going to demonstrate a little bit of that sound in the piece. Now you might be saying, what a weird tone for an oboe to have. Well, oboes don't sound like that normally, and this was written originally for flute. But she's creating that sound in her throat, and it just creates kind of a tension that comes off of that first movement. And then in the percussion, I have the percussion player actually playing with a violin or a bass bow on the vibraphone, and it creates this kind of a sound. Very subtle sound, and it might be hard to hear, but I wanted you to kind of keep your eyes on John as he tries to produce that sound tonight. It's just to create kind of an eeriness in that second movement. So, thank you, Sally, very much.
Congregavi nos in unum
Thank you.